السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. Allah in whose name we begin, the eternal with no beginning, the everlasting with no ending. Peace and choicest salutations upon the cream of creation, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is a series of discussions that we're going to have. And inshallah, the intent is for it to also become a resource for those people who may not have access to reading or prefer some kind of visual or a discussion. Now, in the previous episode, we looked at the intent behind writing the book, The Logical Problems with Shi'ism. And we looked at the reasoning behind it, the intent, and also we did an overview of why, when the Sunni scholars of Islam, when we refute Shi'ism, what we are actually doing, in fact, is defending the Ahlul Bayt. And this is why the book itself is dedicated to the Ahlul Bayt. And of course, I anticipated that there were going to be people who will vilify and will demonize the book, and as well as the content without even reading it. But that's a given and that's fine. But the point of discussion is, irrespective of what people think or hear or say without hearing, it's more important for us to actually engage with the content. And now for today's discussion, albeit brief discussion, and inshallah, as we grow the subject matter over the episodes to come, we will go more deep into it. So today, I wanted to look at the concept and explain why it is a defense of the Ahlul Bayt to refute Shiism. Now, when I say Shiism, what I'm actually referring to, and to qualify the statement, is in fact what we call Ithna Ashariya, the Twelvers. And this is because they are predominantly the large denomination, or the largest denomination of the Shia that remain today, albeit they were not the first in terms of the theological or the fragments of the Shias that emerged over the years. They were not the first, but they seem to have been the one that remained. And of course, there's historical reasons for that, with certain dynasties that promoted those ideas and politicized it and so forth. But we will come to that, inshallah. For today, our discussion is on defending the Ahlul Bayt. And in the previous episode, I just skimmed through a few points, but today I want to go through them with a little bit more detail. Now, I make it very, very clear that amongst the implications that befall the Ahlul Bayt under Shia theology are as follows. Meaning, if a person believes in Ithna Ashariya and the claim of the Ithna Ashariya, then automatically there are some implications that follow which you cannot escape from. And as a result of those implications, then we have to now question and see what meets the historical record and what doesn't. The first of which is, firstly, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu is portrayed as a figure who allegedly remained silent in the face of widespread injustice, despite allegedly being a divinely appointed and infallible imam. This is the first thing. Meaning, if Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was indeed, as the Shia say, a divinely appointed and an infallible imam, then the issue that we have is that he remained silent in the face of widespread injustice. This is like saying that someone who was designated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to eradicate the idea of injustice and so forth, this person decided to remain silent, to not say anything uh, about injustice, which is the question that we ask the Shias, is that why do you make such a big noise about Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu when he himself didn't say anything, right? And then obviously you have to retrospectively refit the subject to fit history with taqiyya and so forth, which we'll come to, okay? Then I mentioned that he is presented as someone who allowed what is described as apostasy, corruption, and usurpation to flourish unchecked, raising serious questions about his courage, resolve, and meaning that when we ask the Shia, they say that Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma, they say Abu Bakr and Umar, they were corrupt. They were, ma'adallah, usurpers. They stole the Caliphate from Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. Okay, let's just say, even though that's not true, hypothetically, if we agree that this is your position, now we have to then ask, okay, why did Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, Sher Khuda, Haydar Karrar, Fatih Khaybar, why did he remain silent? Our perspective of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu is that when we say al-haqqu ma'ali, because they like to use this, that the truth is with Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, alhamdulillah, we accept that. And we say this is why he did not fight Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, because he understood that the haqq was at that time not for him to be the caliph, to be the khalif. Because how could he, a person who is the lion of Allah, Asadullah, decide that, you know what, it's okay to be quiet? And they give their reasoning. He didn't want to cause dissent in the Ummah, which is something we'll discuss, if not today, then on another day. This doesn't make sense. This is not the Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu that we have known and come to love. The brave Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, the one who was willing to stand by the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this doesn't make much sense. Secondly, the second point now, he is further depicted as having stood by while his wife, Sayyida Fatima radiallahu anha, was supposedly abused without intervening or defending her. Such a portrayal conflicts sharply with his well established character, his bravery, and his sense of honor, and reduces him to a passive observer in events that strike at the very core of, of dignity and justice. Meaning that if we say that Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala an was the person who we say he was, and we actually, it's in our books, we know his character, we know his quality, we know the caliber of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. Now, when you speak to the Shia, it's like there's a script that they follow. What do they say? They say, no, that ma'adallah, Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab came and he abused Sayyida Fatima radiallahu anha. He kicked the door open and he killed the unborn child, and ma'adallah, he dragged her in the street. Okay, this is a fabrication. But if we were to accept it for a moment, there's a logical problem. There are people who are not soldiers today. They've never fought in a war. They've probably never had a fight in their life, a physical fight. But that person, if someone were to lay hands on his wife, automatically he would have the courage to step in and defend someone who he loves. Are we saying that Sayyiduna Ali radiallahu an, he saw, he witnessed his wife, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being physically abused, and he did nothing. In fact, not only did he do nothing, he later on went to on the council of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, on the council of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, he gave them advice. He was a senior advisor. He did all of this under the people who abused his family out of fear. Ali radiallahu anh, Haydar Karrar, Fatih Khaybar, Asadullah. This doesn't make sense. And this is why we say at the beginning of the book, in the introduction, one of the first statements we say is that Shiism does not make sense. And anyone who says that this is sensible, then I think there's something that we really have to go and get ourselves checked up on. Okay. The third point is the implications of Ghadir Khum as interpreted within Shi'i theology render Sayyidina Ali politically ineffective, bound by divine authority yet unable or unwilling to act upon it, thereby presenting him as a man whose infallibility produced no tangible moral or societal reform. Meaning, if the Shia say that Ghadir Khum was the announcement of the imamate of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa karramallahu wajhahu al-kareem, if they say that this is the case, then what did it accomplish? Right? What was the consequences of that? Now, someone will say that no, it didn't happen because the caliphate was stolen from him, but then we revert to the previous questions. If that was the case, why did he, radiallahu anh, not fight them? Then there's a series of excuses that come, but also are illogical. So what we're saying is that all you're saying is that Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh was given a title which he himself never expressly confirmed, nor did he, at a later stage when he was in complete control, refute. Because if someone says that Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh was afraid that they would oppress him and oppress his family, okay, let's say hypothetically that's possible, even though it doesn't make sense for someone as brave as him, for someone who stands upon haqq like him. Then when he became caliph, and when there was no one there to stop him, to say what he wanted to say, then why did he not say it? This is a problem, because if he said these things, it would have reached the level of mutawatir. Everyone would have said what they heard, and they would have known the truth, but no such thing took place. Fourthly, Sayyida Fatima radiallahu anha is depicted as someone primarily concerned with material wealth, particularly in the dispute over fadak. So in the book, we have a section on fadak, but again, this is an overview. What we're saying is that when we teach our daughters about Sayyida Fatima radiallahu anha, do we teach her to be a woman of piety or a woman who was interested in worldly gain? We teach that she was a woman of the highest level of piety. This is what we believe. But if you take the Shi'i version and singing the Baghe Fadak, which comes with a whole lot of fallacious points that accompany it, and for which they cannot give us requisite or logical answers to, then we find that we're actually teaching a version of Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha. Imagine there are so many people, let's just take a female in particular, whose hearts are softer than that of men, and your father passes away. And not just any, your father is your whole life. For many of the young girls today, their father is their everything. Okay? Now imagine your father passes away, but all you are interested in is one piece of land. Because that's how, ma'adallah, and we absolve this idea of Sayyidah Fatima anha being a person who, despite her beloved father, who was not just a father like anyone, ma kana Muhammadin aba hadim rijalikum, he's not just a man like any of our men, but he's Rasulullah. Imagine her father, who is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and her piety, which nobody today can match. And you telling us that all she was interested in was fadak. And in fact, we've given the evidence here from the Shia books that Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha was happy. Yes, she was happy with the decision of Fadak, which the Shias, who are like trolls on our social media accounts, they've probably never read that narration. They've never read it in their major books. They only regurgitate the same information that they hear constantly. So we don't believe that Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha was a person who was only interested in worldly gain. But when we come to Fadak, which is, I mean, we're only at this point of the book now. We still have all of this information, inshallah, that we will cover. The fifth point is that she, Sayyidah Fatima anha, is presented as willing to contest, argue, and struggle with the elected leadership over worldly matters. And this is how she is presented. And then they bring narrations that, okay, then why was she angry with Abu Bakr? We have tackled this. There's no such thing. People who just copy and paste narrations in the Sunni books without reading the commentaries from the Sunni ulama and from the scholars and the muhaddithun, it's either you don't know when you are ignorantly promoting stuff, or you know very well and then it's deception. And I'm not surprised at that, because part of the belief system of the Shia is premised and predicated on the subject of taqiyya. Uh, Sixth, Sayyidina al-Hasan radiallahu anh is placed in an impossible position where his pursuit of reconciliation is reframed as weakness, coercion, or betrayal rather than wisdom. I mean, ask yourself, why is there so minimal information about Sayyiduna al-Hasan radiallahu anh? And yes, we all understand the tragedy at Karbala. Nobody can deny that it was a tragedy. No one can deny everything that happened as a result of it, as a corollary of it, and things that followed after. We accept and we understand. But why is it that the second Imam, Sayyidina al Hasan, radiallahu anhu, he is completely overlooked in Shi'i circles? And one of the reasons is because of his bay'ah to Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anh, because that destroys the foundation of Shiism. And they don't want you to know this. They don't want you to see even the reports in their books. What led to Sayyidina al-Hasan radiallahu anh actually giving bay'ah in the hands of Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anh. They don't want you to know this. Okay, and that's why I am on the receiving end of flack from the Shia trolls, on the chats. Because why? It's either it's an anvil on their head because it's the first time they're hearing it and they're in a state of denial, or they deny it on the basis that because the brain does not want to reconcile what the consequences of this is, so they just burn everything. So they don't spend time on Sayyidina al-Hasan radiallahu anh, because Sayyidina al-Hasan radiallahu anh, he annihilates the concept of 12 Shiism. And on the subject on Imama Refuted, we have a section that deals with that. Okay, there's two more points, inshallah. Seventh, the Ahlul Bayt as a whole are implicitly accused of prioritizing political calculation over Quranic principles, ma'allah, as their patience, restraint, and avoidance of bloodshed are reinterpreted to align with Shia doctrines. When we ask them, you are making so much of noise, you are attacking this Sahabi, you are cursing and doing la'na on that Sahaba, why is it that your Imams didn't do so? Then they have to reinterpret, like the revisionists, the Christian revisionists today. We have to go and reinterpret our Islamic material simply because it destroys the foundations of what they believe. Similarly, the Shia have to reinterpret every statement. We ask them, why did Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh say that Abu Bakr is best and Umar is best and this person did this? They say, no, taqiyya. Everything gets swept under the taqiyya carpet, reinterpreting their own personal superimpositions on the Imam. So basically, they know more than the Imam. They know better than the Imam. Because we tell them that Sayyidina al-Hasan radiallahu anh gave bay'ah, they give us their reasoning. What's in our books and what's in their books, even if they both are in synchrony, they don't accept it. They give their personal opinion. We're not interested in your personal opinion. We're not interested in the opinions of people who came 1300 years later to tell us about things that happened before their time, right? So, especially at the expense of the a'mal of the Ahlul Bayt themselves. Lastly, Their silence and forbearance are repeatedly treated as problems requiring explanation, giving rise to doctrines such as taqiyya, known as dissimulation, which suggest that the Imams routinely conceal truth or outwardly endorse what they inwardly rejected. Meaning, they want us to believe that every time the Imams did something, and that action of theirs that was recorded, which contradicts the Shia doctrine, when we ask them, why is it so? They say taqiyya. That what they believed in the inside and what they said with their tongues, they were not in synchrony. And we do not accept that this was the position of the great scholars of the Ahlul Bayt, the great leaders of the Ahlul Bayt. We don't believe this. We believe that they were far more pious, far more brave, far more honest, far more truthful than the position that, or the superimposition that is applied to the Imams. And this is why we say that when we defend our Sunni position against the position of the Shias, which by the way is, it's a logical problem. If you've just paid attention for a few moments, you can see that there's a cascade of contradictions that arise from the Shia belief. Now, inshallah, in the coming episode, we're going to discuss this issue of, is it sectarianism to discuss this? Because there are a lot of hypocrites who they won't tell me to my face, but they're telling their people that, oh, this is sectarian. To talk about this is sectarianism. And the world is suffering in relation to Palestine. And because they're of that suffering, anything that discusses the problem of the Shia is in fact weakening the Ummah. This is a claim, something that I've dealt with in the book. And inshallah, next week or the next episode that we do, we're going to cover this, because there are opportunists that are using the plight of Palestine to give you a false sense of reality, to make you believe that because Iran opposes Israel, therefore Iran's theology is correct. Now, if you have any understanding or grounding in logic, you will realize that that entire reasoning is flawed, it's fallacious, the conclusion does not follow from the premises, and that's something that we're going to discuss in the coming episode. And inshallah, for those of the brothers who are interested, brothers and sisters, in the coming episodes, we will even take your questions, and if we can, if we have time related to the topic, we will try to deal with it, inshallah. If anything good has been achieved, the praise belongs to Allah, the faults are mine. Inshallah, do not forget, this coming Friday, for those of you in Durban, we are hosting a program to honor the ulama of Durban and KZN who have passed away since. There are many more names to go on that poster that we couldn't add, but inshallah we will. And also on the 7th of August is our fundraising initiative, which is dedicated to the Sahaba on the concept of the guiding stars. We would like to see you attend. Those of you who would like to sponsor tickets, for those who cannot afford, you are more than welcome. Jazakallah khair. Astaghfirullah Rabbi min kulli dhanbi wa atubu ilayh. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.